What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and today I'm gonna show you guys our top 5 favorite shallow bass techniques. Just some rigs you can use when, especially around here right now, water's warming up, bass are moving in shallow. It's when you have the best chance to get the big, real big bass. They're feeding like crazy. So when it opens up, you can be all prepared. Before we get started, if you could please subscribe and like the video, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, so for the best technique we have is wacky rigging. We have a couple different things we use. For shallow, for real shallow, we use the Yum Dinger because it sinks slower. If you're curious the comparison with how they sink, I have a video which I'll link up in the card right now. We also use the Bass Pro Sticko, which is a bit of an alternative to the Senko, the Gary Yamamoto Senko. Everyone knows those. These are cheaper and they last longer, so these are a better option. So these sink a little bit faster, so they're not quite as good in shallow water where these really excel. Another technique we use is this Z-Man, the big TRD. It's still a stick bait. People sometimes use them for like Ned rigs and stuff, but we found if you put a nail weight in them and you wacky rig them, they stand upright and you can kind of jiggle them, and oftentimes the bass love that. So basically Nico rigging it, but that's the first technique. Another thing about them, the hooks. We've experimented back and forth with some different sizes of Nico hook. Right here, you can see the comparison, the two different sizes. Hopefully you can see that. Try to hold it out a little bit better. These two hooks. One of them, I believe, is a 6, and the other one's a 4. The 6, the little guy, is great for sticking fish. So you don't even have to set the hook. You literally just reel into the fish and it'll get them. But these bend out pretty bad. So you hit a dock or you hook a big fish and you're fighting it. You got to have your drag loose because you'll just bend it out. So you go through a lot of them. I do not recommend trying to bend the hook back because you often just break it and it's never very strong. So we're kind of in between. We can never figure out which hook we actually end up liking. The bigger one, I think this is the 4 right there, doesn't prick them quite as well. You do have to, hit them with it. So we're not quite sure which one we like more. So that's kind of our in-between. We use both of them, but if I had to go with one, I'd probably go with a bigger one simply because it doesn't, you don't go through quite as many of them because they don't bend out as bad. But yeah, so that's our first and I guess best technique for shallow water bass fishing, just up on the shoreline. The second technique is shaky head fishing. So you got your little shaky head there. You take your worm. This particular one we like. I forget what this hook is called. It's not a VMC shaky head. I'm not a big fan of the VMC one. It's kind of awkward to use. You literally just take it, hook it like that. It's weedless. I mean, you kind of prick it out just a little bit. Fish. And this kind of stands up, so you kind of bounce it along the bottom. This is more of a cast to the fish. Like you see them directly and you're just, fishing. It's also a good bed for fishing beds. But this is a great technique for the shallow bass. Just throw it up in front of them and kind of work it along. For the bait, we use these, the Zoom trick worm. Seems to be a pretty good color. We tried some different colors, but I think that watermelon is the best. And yeah, especially for smallmouth, and largemouth love them too, but these are a great shallow water bait. Number 3 is the Tokyo rig right there. So the Tokyo rig is a wide gap hook with a piece of wire which you put a weight on and then bend the little end right there, and then it has a swivel you tie your line onto. And the idea with this is this hits the bottom and stops the bait from laying on the bottom. And we found this is great for a little bit weedier areas in the spring. Just kind of bounce this along the bottom, almost like you would a jig. For the bait, especially in the spring. They're kind of they like white things. So one that we like, haven't really found a ton. These are kind of expensive, but they're good. The Strike King Rage Tail. And again, you just rig it like you would any other, how you would basically anything. You just hook it through the nose, bring it around, and then stick it through the body how you would, it's a Texas rig basically. And it just bounces along the bottom. And this is we've caught some big fish on this. It's a great bait for that shallow bite when the bass are up shallow and they are eating. And that's what they're going to be doing this time of year. Okay, now moving on to a little bit more search techniques. This is kind of an odd thing, but I tried it. I believe Mike Iaconelli talked about this rig for fishing Monticello, the river. And I tried it for lakes because I believe mentioned in the video where he talked about it that it worked in lakes. I'll link the video up here. But I forget what he calls it, but it's basically a Nico hook with a bait saver Nico. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little piece of fluorocarbon tied on there that keeps the bait on. About 10 inches of 15-pound fluorocarbon to a little barrel swivel. And all you literally do is you just thread the bait like this down through the nose like that. So it's I didn't do a very good job of that, but so it's sticking up, and you literally work this just like a jerk bait, very slow. You just kind of twitch it along, and I tell you, the bass in the spring will just munch this. It's the weirdest thing. Normally a fluke isn't the best thing for that. Tail's kind of messed up on that one, but it just twitches and it drives them nuts, and they'll just come up behind it and just suck it in. It's amazing how this works. So if you haven't tried this, you should. Just the fluorocarbon and the lead and the swivel kind of give it a different action. Also, it keeps it from twisting, and you can just kind of roll it along, and they will just come up and swallow that. For the bait, I'm just using a Zoom fluke. Any fluke works, but they munch that technique. It's the weirdest thing. I've never really used flukes before. I saw it and I tried it, and it really does work in the spring. So another technique you should definitely give a shot if you haven't already. Okay, and for the final technique, this is a bait we've caught a lot of smallmouth on. It also works for bass quite well. It is the search bait. It's a GT360. It's literally called a search bait. It has a little rattle in the head, and it's the small one. I believe this is 4 inches long. Real small bait. Real subtle action, just cruising along. And I can tell you, the bass will just be sitting there cruising, and they will just come up and just inhale this bait. We've had pretty good luck with it on Mille Lacs, especially. The smallmouth there will love this bait. You just have to make sure if they're short biting it, switch to something a little bit more subtle. We've had issues with them just kind of nipping at the tail, and then it's definitely time to switch to something that they will that they don't have to chase down as much. Okay, so that's my 5 baits for springtime bass fishing. Just when they're up in the shallows, not when they're out deep. This is specifically for real skinny water, at max like 2 feet of water, and some weeds, but just kind of weedy areas a little bit. These techniques have been proved in the past for us that they've really worked well. This is definitely the time of year, coming up in the time of year where the bass are eating, putting on the pounds before the spawn. So hopefully in the coming weeks we'll be able to get out and start catching some bass on these techniques and get some videos done for you. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you got some use out of this video. Try some of these new techniques. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. So I hope this was helpful, and please like the video, subscribe, share it with your friends, and that's about it. So good luck on your next fishing trip.